My name is Robert Donoghue. I'm a domain consultant with Palo Alto Networks, and was asked to put this session together for customers that are currently Panorama managed, have a Panorama managed estate, and might be interested in learning more about Strata Cloud Manager and what that kind of migration path might look like. So I'm going to jump straight in without further ado. So the green light, when I thought I'd start here, to kind of do a bit of a level set. So when we see the color green, the brain automatically, kind of has a certain kind of association with things are good. Something is correct. Maybe our school teachers mark something correct. Or if we see a green traffic light, it's safe to proceed. But when we're managing our firewall estate from Panorama, that green light can sometimes create a false sense of security, because because something is in sync from a configuration standpoint from Panorama, it doesn't mean it's in a good, the configuration is in maybe the best posture, the best posture state. From a best practices point of view, how good is that green light really, shining? So I've listed some kind of high level bullet points there that I see on the most kind of advanced deployments around UK and Ireland, with senior engineers that have been working with Palo Alto Networks products a long time. I'm seeing low app ID uptake in a high percentage of estates where improvements could be made within the security policies and just in general of the best practices within the firewalls themselves. But who has time for this, and who has time to allocate people to scale out this posture improvement project, which effectively it is. Now, we could kind of bury our heads in the sand, but the implications of that approach are can be pretty drastic. So the Information Commissioner's Office has a reference on their website, a lot of references indeed, on the implications of poor config management, and there's varying degrees of evidence to show that a lot of breaches are caused by effectively poor or lax configuration, configured on whatever vendors appliances they are. So at Palo Alto Networks, we want to try and turn the tide on that. So what is our options? We want to provide effectively a digital detox. So we want to move, apologies to the corny pictures, but I've coined this term, PANW ergonomics, and move from a bad posture state within your existing config to a much more improved security efficacy, using the tools and the features and the subscriptions that you may already have on your estate. So some simple steps to improve your security posture. So the number one most impactful step here would be to remove overly permissive policies, or enhance overly permissive policies, or optimize them. Now, there is a built-in tool on Panorama for optimizing security policies, but it only looks at app IDs. And there's a number of fields, as we all know, on a security policy. There's source address, there's destination address, there's user ID, and if we're not leveraging all of those, and we're just looking at app ID individually, we could be missing a trick. So we need another way to optimize these security policies. Simple thing like removing unused policies and objects. In my previous experience as a professional service consultant, I would have done many migrations for hospitals throughout the UK and many other organizations in the aviation industry included. And many times I was asked to do like-for-like migrations. And, I questioned that when I seen some security policies with the name temp written on them. There's still certain customers wanted even policies with the rule temp moved across to their new config, with the intention of, we want an exact like-for-like lift and shift or match of the config And then afterwards, we'll do a tidy up. But that tidy up never comes. Another project comes in and, something else happens where just time doesn't allow for it. So again, how can we do this at scale? And you don't want to remove any unused objects or policies without some sort of benchmark or some way of making an informed decision to say, I'm not going to get in trouble if I remove these policies or objects. There's some other ones there listed as well. Manufacturers' best practices. So we did have a best practice tool, which we no longer have. So what can we do now to check our best practices on our configuration? But then just on the next line down, unique custom checks. So I know there's seeing the list of from the organizations that are attending, and we've certain delegates from ranging from county councils to universities, higher education, and distinguished universities indeed from throughout the UK. And what's right for a critical unique custom check for a county council might be different for a university. But being able to create those custom checks is going to help each organization abide to the frameworks or abide to the posture that they want to or the level that they want to align to. And then, if we've gone through all of these exercises, we want to avoid falling back to a bad state. And that's kind of like a training element or a coaching element to say, look, we've tidied up the config, and what we don't want to do is fall back to a bad state. So you can apply, how can we apply inline checks to prevent that from happening? And then being audit ready. So we're going to talk a little bit about compliance on the session today. And it shouldn't be like pulling teeth. And, we're going to show and see how that can be made much more easier and friendlier exercise and less time consuming, most importantly. Time, of course, is money for every organization, whether it is a higher university or a county council or other. And, anything we can do to save time is going to be beneficial. So what can we do to save time from a management point of view? Well, Strata Cloud Manager, just to give a brief level set, has a number of kind of key pillars associated with it. So yes, we have our kind of visibility pillar. All of our form factors can be managed through our Strata Cloud Manager, Prisma Access, Cloud Next Generation Firewall, VM series, physical firewalls, remote users as well, Prisma Access. And the list is growing basically. From a management and a visibility point of view, being able to see and collect metrics from all of those different medians in one central place is going to help you, of course, as the network administrator, make informed decisions. But you have that in Panorama, right? So yeah, there's an extra dashboard or two, it's kind of underplaying it slightly, but for the most part, you have visibility and management options on Panorama. So where Strata Cloud Manager really distinguishes itself from Panorama is around the security posture and the operational health section, kind of key pillars. And we're going to focus on these today and see how even if you're an existing Panorama user and customer, how it doesn't have to be an either or situation, where Strata Cloud Manager and Panorama can work together in advance of a fully fledged migration. Now, the most important part of this whole process, if you want your Panorama to work and talk and integrate with Strata Cloud Manager, is to install the Cloud Connector plugin 3.0. It does involve a CLI command, which if you're like me and you don't read the documentation as good as you should, you might miss that step. So if you do, or when you do, I should say, connect your Panorama to Strata Cloud Manager, just make sure you have CLI access, please. And then what can we do when we do connect our Panorama and associate our firewalls, of course, with Strata Logging Service? Well, from a policy optimizer, the number one, what I said, the most important thing that we can do to improve our security posture is using this policy optimizer. So the policy optimizer, it works on a 15-day, well, it starts minimum of 15-day days worth of logs would have to be collected and analyzed, and then it's able to cross-check your policies against those logs. And if there's any in the source user, in the source address, in the destination address, in the applications, it will pool those policies in to the policy optimizer, and with a view to convert ANIs into somethings, basically. It gives you ways that we can prioritize the policies based on the amount of traffic that's hit it, and kind of a one-click optimization. So we'll do a quick kind of video of what that looks like here. And again, this can be for a panorama managed estate. This isn't for managing our just our cloud managed solution. So policy optimizer, we'll see at the top of the page, there's a little downward pointing chevron, and I can switch to my panorama. Now, I've only one policy in this, showing in my rules to optimize. So I can, there's one policy there, an Azure probe policy. So I go ahead and click that, and it's given me an option to, optimize these security policies. So one of the kind of cool things about this from a network administrator's point of view is it goes in and looks to see, do you have a source address or destination address that satisfies the traffic that's been matched in this policy? Do I have that in my internal object database? If I don't, it will create that address object for me. And then once that address object, of course, is created, it will be referenced in that security policy. But the fact that it checks to see, do I have an existing one, is, it's really where this kind of the smart element of this feature comes in. Now, from Panorama side, if I go to Panorama, I will see then that the candidate configuration has been updated. So the change of the posture policy optimized will push it down to the candidate configuration on Panorama, and then it would have to do the commit and the push effectively from Panorama to the firewalls. The rules are fully editable. It is, like I said, this is just an extra AI tool running in the cloud that's analyzing your logs at scale and cross-checking those logs against your policies with a view to improve them. Okay, and you would do the commit and the push from, like I said, the Panorama. You'll see that the Cloud Connector commit ID is referenced there. So the Cloud Connector is this kind of plugin that integrates your Panorama with Strata Cloud Manager. And then it'll just send it down to the device. The sequences are sped up for full disclosure slightly here as well. No, I don't have a super fast Panorama, if anyone is looking to see why the commits are going through so quick. But that is in essence the process. So what's next on the thing that we can use to clean up our policies? Well, removing unused objects or config clutter. So if we have a clean workbench, the products that we have is going to be, the products we produce is going to be, from a manufacturing analogy, is going to be a bit more sharper and a bit more accurate. From a network administrator's point of view, the cleaner our configuration is, the less likely it is that our configuration is going to, sprawl, is going to drift, we're going to have lots of unused or unreferenced objects in policies. And just in general, the better position we would be in as administrators or heads of a network. So what does that look like? Well, again, within our Strata Cloud Manager Pro features, we have these posture enhancement settings, and one of them is the config cleanup. I can switch between Cloud Managed or Panorama because of this Cloud Connector plugin, and I can see then a list of unused objects, zero-hit objects. So this would be a zero-hit object. I'm referencing multiple source addresses in a policy. Maybe only one or two of them are being hit. This is going to say, a certain amount of them are being hit, others aren't. It's going to give me the days since they've been hit or not hit, and it's going to give me the option then to delete them from Strata Cloud Manager and effectively push that change to the candidate config on Panorama. So zero hit policy rules, zero hit objects and unused objects by just removing this in a secure way, of course, because if you see high amount of dates and times since since an object was hit, it gives you more clout as the administrator to make that change without fear of reprisals basically from the help desk. And we just see that commit come through again in here, preview the changes, which we can do, and you can see exactly what objects were added, removed, etc. And decide then if you want to push them through directly from Panorama, of course. And again, it's the Cloud Connector ID showing that this change has come down from Strata Cloud Manager, and it just do the push to the devices, and that's the update then. So what else have we? Well, one of the other things that we have is the vendor's best practices, or Palo Alto Networks recommendations, or critical security checks, or CSCs. And we obviously we built these firewalls from the ground up. We've coded them. We have people on the field using them. We've our support staff. We've our professional services. We've our sales teams. We have this collective wealth of information about what works, what should work, how it works, how we should configure stuff, and all of that is baked into our best practices, which are detailed within our Zero Trust Posture Center. Now, the Zero Trust Posture Center, again, it lives on the Strata Cloud Manager GUI Pro features, and within that, we have a series of checks and balances that we can check for. This can be scheduled as well. This report. You can do custom checks if you have the Strata Cloud Manager Pro features, Pro subscription indeed. And it goes through basically how we're recommending ye should have your configuration set up. And that's looking at Panorama configuration if we're using the Cloud Connector plugin, as well as our cloud managed estate as well. And without knowing what our score is, we don't know how to improve. So if we've sometimes we need an external kind of third party assessment to really kind of see the wood from the trees and see if our configuration could do with an improvement. So moving into kind of looking at what that looks like, brings it, we've followed one recommendation. It's brought us into the incident section, and it's highlighting there that a particular URL profile is failing a couple of posture checks, and it's bringing me to that. It's giving me more information about that. We'll see more about the incidents and what we can do with these alerts now in a moment. But just for the moment, I might just pause there, Chloe. I don't know if you want to roll one of the polls, or if you have run the polls. You already have, sorry. In the world of my own here, Chloe. Going up. So yeah, if you haven't checked the polls, please do, and please provide because your feedback is a gift, and that's the idea of the polls. So thank you, Chloe. So custom and inline checks. So our custom checks are bespoke checks that we can create for our individual different sectors, different organizations that's important to us, our users, our customers. But an inline check is where we just we don't want to have stuff to happen. Where a custom check is effectively we create the condition to alert on it. An inline check would be creating the condition to prevent that situation from happening. So it's as granular as you can imagine with these checks that we can do. So we'll roll a quick video or demo on what this looks like. So I've done all these demos just yesterday, basically, and recorded the sequence of what this looks like. So within our incidents section, using our Strata Cloud Manager Pro license and features, we can create custom checks. And one of the checks that I kind of big fan of is the posture, the security rule posture check. And it makes for a good demo because we can really, you know, show the power of this. So I'm creating a custom check in here to, I have a ServiceNow, for example, ticket system, and I want all my policies to have a ServiceNow ticket number created in that policy description. And if it doesn't have it in that policy description, I want to alert it. So I'm going to start off kind of just alerting on this. There is direct integrations with ServiceNow and Strata Cloud Manager as well. So, you know, we can update a ServiceNow, we can create tickets for ServiceNow if a particular incident occurs as well. So there is direct integration there. So I've created this custom check and it's just set to alert. You'll see there at the bottom. And I'm going to go in and create a security policy now. And you'll see there's kind of guidance or steering. So add a description to the service. You know, add a it's telling me, you know, there's something there telling me that I should have something in there. But if I just go through and, you know, I create a kind of Friday afternoon security policy, any allow, save, it'll allow me save that policy. Okay, you know, it will alert me now to the fact that the description isn't been, it's a recommendation. So it's like if to use an MOT analogy, it's an advisory. So we want to make this a fail and an inline check. So we go back to our incident section, and instead of having that set to alert, we're going to you know, set it to a block, and we're going to see what the difference is here. So scroll right to the end, and my service now, I'm going to set that to a block and save the setting. Now, where I did speed up the sequence of the commits and different things like that on the previous video, I didn't speed up this sequence. So I just changed that to a block and I went straight directly into the security policy. And now you see it's not an advisory, it's a required. Now you see that it is giving me the option to override and save. Now the reason it's giving me that option is because I am logged in as the super admin. If I'm logged in as a project admin, that option will be grayed out. So if you're, you know, training on or bringing on members of your team, firstly, not everyone has to be a super admin, but if they're not a super admin, they won't be able to override if those inline checks are in place. And that will really help. You know, we're going to see customers' configuration improve dramatically if they start using that feature. Now, the Compliance Center. So the compliance, I work closely with an organization in the aviation industry just over the Christmas gone, and they moved to Strata Cloud Manager Pro. And they kind of two things to note on that. They were spending a lot of money on compliance, which we're going to talk about how this feature on Strata Cloud Manager can help. And they're also spending quite a lot of money on log storage. Now, just I don't have a slide on the log storage, but as part of the Strata Cloud Manager Pro features, Strata Logging Service comes included with that. Now that is a year's worth of unlimited log storage for 1 year since the log, from the time that the log is generated or ended or logged. That log will be in storage for at least 1 year, and that doesn't matter whether it's 1 terabyte or whether it's 100 terabytes. There is no fair usage policy on that log storage capabilities. The organization in the critical network infrastructure, they wanted to confirm that there is no fair usage policy, and we were gladly able to confirm that as well. But from a compliance point of view, the CISO within that organization, we were having a cadence with them, and they were talking about their audit was coming up because they were critical network infrastructure. And this audit was very time consuming for this organization's team. There was a few people working on it, providing screenshots of configuration and making those available to people in the audit team. And the CISO kind of, he referred to it as like being in a dentist's waiting room and hearing the drill and screams coming from the waiting room. There was an unknown element of it. He didn't know whether it was going to be a good experience or bad experience every time that this audit was occurring. And he wanted to, he needed a way and wanted a way to try and get ahead of, to remove the unknown element of it. So the compliance center massively checked the box. It overly checked the box for their particular use case. And within why it overly checked the box is they were able to apply their own customized framework on there, and we'll show that now in a moment. But firstly, within our compliance center, it gives us different bench frameworks that we kind of buy to, and you see there that it gives an industry average. So this is the current as at yesterday at 6 o'clock when I made this video as date. This is the available frameworks. Now, that list will grow. I'm working closely with product management, my peers and colleagues in California, and they advise me that list is growing significantly over the next 6 to 12 months. Now, we can add in our own custom framework. We can clone an existing framework, or we can create our own manual framework in there. You can schedule that report, and we look at the report at the end of this sequence. And the report is you don't need a doctorate in computer science to know whether you're in a good position or a bad position on that report. Within the actual metadata associated with your output, there's a series of filters that you can filter out based on your whole estate. How are you faring out? Or on an individual firewall, how are you faring out? And I've gone through the sequence in here, and there's room for improvement, like all configurations, even on my one. And they're saying that there's some malicious URL categories should be blocked to align to NIST 800-53. And I look at the recommendations. It shows me what the URL categories should be blocked in there. And then really neatly, then if I go into it'll give me the option to remediate it directly in a flow directly from here. So it just shows me firstly where the offending profile is, what folder scope it is, and this different folders and snippets is possibly a topic for another day. But just they're logical groups of containers, where on Panorama you would have a device group and network templates. On Strata Cloud Manager you have folders and snippets. That's it. We can talk more about them on the migration part in a few moments. But within this, it's telling me there's a problem, and it's giving me the option to go to the configuration. I go to the configuration, and it brings me into where my URL profiles are. It's also providing, if I hover over the mouse over there, it's telling me there's something wrong in here. There's room for improvement on that profile. I go into the profile itself. If I see this kind of shield up in the top right hand side, so throughout the whole process there's coaching there that I really want my head in the sand, or I'd want to be not doing my job correctly, to really not do a configuration in a better process than I have been doing previously. There's multiple different areas where it's guiding me to what a good config looks like. Now this is the report. It's given me a compliance rating there of 59% on that. Sorry, I just go back. And it's like I say, it's pretty easy to understand that, whether that's good or whether that's bad. What's the trending like? And without having a kind of percentage score, we don't know if we need to improve, or what our kind of status should be or could be in the future. So that's the kind of posture features. And the next thing I wanted to focus on, another kind of key differentiator between Strata Cloud Manager and Panorama is operational health. So from an operational health point of view, just to kind of set the scene a little bit on that, Palo Alto Networks was 21 years old last year, soon to be 22 years old. But our Technical Assistance Center, our TAC, is also that old, basically. And there's a lot of log analysis has been done, technical support files reviewed over that period of time. Now, AI is only as good as the large language models that it kind of works off. And all of the kind of log analysis that has been done up to date over those kind of 20 odd years in TAC is baked into the large language models that's looking at the telemetry that's coming from your firewalls and making you aware of issues that could be lurking under the hood to prevent service disrupting issues. So it's rather than moving from rather than kind of service disruption issue happens, all hell breaks loose. You open a TAC case, you provide a technical support file, gets analysed, they make recommendations, you implement those recommendations, you close the case. That's a very reactive approach. A more proactive approach would be to have your telemetry going in where it's constantly being analysed, and if there is, in the run up to an issue, generally there's commonalities between issues in the sense of what logs are observed before that issue happens. Now, if we're seeing, if the AI ops element of Strata Cloud Manager Pro is seeing those prerequisites being met for a potential service disruption issue, it's going to start shouting at you by means of an alert process. Now, one thing I do want to highlight, just as we're going through this great feature, and I'm a big fan of it myself, is that this is done on a 5-minute rotation basis. So we send in the telemetry every 5 minutes. So, there could be a situation, it's not, designed to replace SNMP monitoring, for example, but where this kind of shines in regard to telemetry being collected and service disruptions being prevented is it's where SNMP is kind of operating in a silo. This is operating in, it has full visibility, and it knows the implications of the packet buffers filling up and the management CPU also filling up because a change has been made recently or an interface has gone down, and it's able to kind of join all of these multiple different dots together and provide intelligent probable causes and alerts to the organization. But most important, I want to give you all the information that I can today, and it's on a 5-minute rolling basis. I'm not going through all of this on the list, but it goes, quite low level of what it is being collected. And just think of, for those familiar with a technical support file, it has multiple different files contained in it. All of those types of telemetry and metadata being analyzed constantly. So it's almost like a preemptive support case constantly analyzing your files, and will highlight and give you information to say, you need to do something, or, you need to be aware of this, because if you don't do something, you could run into issues. Other cool things for me is it's able to provide threshold recommendations for zone protection profiles based on your estate, is something I find quite useful. Other things that I find quite useful is the probable cause. So I alluded to the probable cause. So probable cause will be why we think, or why the system thinks that a certain issue is occurring. So, if it's high processing activity, is this related to a change? Is it the packet buffers filling up? Are you being dust? It's able to kind of look at what could be causing that issue and alert you to it. I've just some examples of what these alerts look like. Redundant power supply failure. That's an interesting alert, an important alert to get. If I get that and it's being pulled every 5 minutes, I can view the incident from Strata Cloud Manager Pro directly. I can create a support case, and I can get that redundant power supply RMA ASAP. Another, so I was doing some gardening recently, and I hit a cable going to my outside office, and I got an email straight away to say that the dig better, basically, that the Ethernet interface had gone down. So, getting those types of intelligent insights emailed out to you as an administrator, it isn't kind of going to, they're intelligent alerts. You're not going to be fatigued by, this once a week type of alert coming through. And once that interface got plugged back in and I fixed the cable effectively, and that incident resolved itself basically, and would show us resolved, and I would get an updated email. Now, the next thing, just briefly on the operationals point of view, working with Palo Alto Networks technologies quite a long time, there isn't a week that goes past when somebody asks me what PANWS version to upgrade to. Now, there is a focus services feature where bespoke software guidance recommendations is provided. on Strata Cloud Manager, that feature is baked into the product. So it looks at your configuration and it makes recommendations based on the fact that you have QoS configured or policy-based forwarding configured. It tells you what recommendation PANWS that you should upgrade to, and how many, and effectively giving you an informed way to analyze that by looking at the associated support cases with that. So if we just go back to that there for a second. The associated cases. So from my support days, previously worked as a support engineer, and being able to know how many associated cases are there with a known issue would have greatly helped me in making recommendations or an informed decision of what PANWS version I should be, or the customer should be, upgrading to. And all of that is baked into the Strata Cloud Manager license. It's not the most glamorous feature, but for me, that's one of the real powerful ones for me. Quick check on time. We're all good. So we've connected our panorama to Strata Cloud Manager. We've improved our config, optimized our policies, removed unused objects, applied some custom checks and inline preventative features from our config from sliding back to a bad state. And we're looking at the telemetry and forecasting issues, before they become service disruption. So we're now, we're in a stage of the journey where we want to fully migrate our panorama managed estate over to Strata Cloud Manager. How does that look, and what should we be aware of? So we've this kind of corporate slide basically, and I have another Robert slide, my own slide now in a moment or two, but this is kind of the general flow of how how we want customers to migrate fully fledged to Strata Cloud Manager. And indeed, it is exactly as I kind of outlined throughout this webinar: is connect your panorama, tidy up your config, and then migrate the panorama over. In essence, that's the kind of high level summary basically of it. But what does that look like, and what if any tools do we have? So there is an embedded there is technical documentation. Firstly, I've listed it here. It is available on our public website of how we can migrate a panorama managed configuration to Strata Cloud Manager, and gives you kind of some prerequisites, minimum versions, as you would expect. There's going to be certain FQDNs that are required to be open from the firewall's point of view as well. Nothing that you wouldn't expect. But there will be certain prerequisites that are needed from the firewall to cloud connectivity. But kind of taking the corporate kind of slide out of it, and just my own slide in there, working closely with my peers and friends and colleagues throughout France, Italy, Netherlands, and Poland, and indeed the United Kingdom and Ireland. Some considerations or recommendations that we're learning, and we want to kind of articulate and say to anyone consider this journey. Migrate to ARE, so the Advanced Routing Engine. For those that's not aware, since on a particular PANWS version 11.2, 11.1 or 11.2, we introduced this Advanced Routing Engine concept, and it's a move away from our previous logical router. It's a slightly different way of doing things, but it does involve extra features in regard to how you can filter different BGP routes and different things like that. But using the embedded migration tool, you can't migrate a legacy, or the old logical router, I should say, config to Strata Cloud Manager. That would have to be done in advance of the migration. Now that does involve a reboot of the firewalls to create that to migrate to the Advanced Routing Engine. And if you've BGP, you would want you would want to kind of double check that your BGP is migrated okay as part of that process, and be ready to kind of make any sort of minor updates if needed. but that will that could be something you could look at doing, migrating to advanced routing engine if you haven't already done so. And because my friend and colleague in France, he's a customer that has like 1,000 of these firewalls that 2,000 that have to be onboarded to Strata Cloud Manager, and it was an afterthought, and now they all have to be rebooted to migrate the configuration to ARE before the config gets migrated to Strata Cloud Manager. Now, as part of the onboarding process for a greenfield, the advanced routing engine is enabled as part of the bootstrap process. But what I'm alluding to here is effectively just migrating, taking a Panorama config and moving it to Strata Cloud Manager. HA config, is it local or is it on Panorama? If it's local, of course, it won't get migrated. We had a discussion recently with this with our product managers and our technical marketing director and some subject matter experts, and indeed the main consultants such as myself, my peers throughout EMEA. And it's a kind of depends type of stuff. It depends option. Some customers like doing the HA locally. Some professional services engineers still prefer to do the HA settings locally. One of the neat things with Strata Cloud Manager, whether it's done locally or whether it's managed through Strata Cloud Manager is aware it is a HA deployment. SD-WAN is not supported on the migration tool. Custom reports are not supported on the migration tool, so it's a consideration. Not the end of the world. The reporting is far and above much better on Strata Cloud Manager than Panorama. Connecting your Panorama to SCM using the Cloud Connector, I would do, as I said throughout, and associating Panorama and the firewalls to Strata logging service. Clean up the Panorama config as we discussed. Test with a lab device. So rather than kind of going through the migration and running into an issue, testing on a lab device is hopefully will bring to the surface. If there is, in the unlikely event there are any issues with the migration, it would bring those to the surface. Now, we hear you, not every customer might have lab devices, but if there was concerns, I'm sure a trial for a VM series or something like that could be allocated if you did speak nicely to my friend and colleague Ian, or indeed the team at KHIPU. Confirm a maintenance window, the most obvious, but sometimes the least likely to have been done. And just asterisks, of course, if you want assistance with this, even for just moving the configuration over, and then you take on the tidying up of the configuration or the onboarding. If you need any sort of assistance, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. It can be a giant partnership where either KHIPU or Palo Alto Networks helps with the outcome effectively, not just time and materials types of days exercise. If you want X of an outcome, there's people there that can help with that and make sure it's a success by a certain time, of course. Okay, so I'll just show a quick example of this. Keep an eye on the time. So this is our migration tool. It is behind the feature flag. It is supported on Strata Cloud Manager Pro and Essentials, which is the free version of Strata Cloud Manager. Strata Cloud Manager Essentials does not have any of the posture features that we've looked at today. But you upload a Panorama configuration. If you have a key, an encryption key, you will need that as part of this. I have sped up the sequence here as well, just for full disclosure. Just for the purposes of the webinar, but you see it's pretty intuitive. Next. I done a pretty straightforward migration. I didn't migrate variables, but it is supported. But I migrated, virtual routers, interfaces, objects, policies. When I done the migration, these VM series showed up in the onboarded devices, but there was just a little extra step that I had to do in here. I go in here and I associate so my templates get moved to snippets, and my device device groups get moved to folders. So I can do, as part of the migration, I can associate snippets to folders, or I can do that afterwards. And I just made the decision to do it afterwards as a second check. And I just do a quick kind of validation. Now, these are my firewalls still connected to Panorama. So I need to go in there and I need to switch these up, right? So this isn't in the technical documentation. This is the extra bit that's not in it, basically. And I have to, push out that change from Panorama to move those firewalls from Panorama to cloud managed. And I removed the Panorama connectivity check just as part of that, because I don't want it, panicking because I can't talk to Panorama. And I forced the template values just kind of one last time from Panorama. That feature isn't available on Strata Cloud Manager yet, but it will be soon, is the information I have. And the forced template values is a common question we have coming up. Once that happens, the firewalls show up in the available devices. I go ahead and select the, move to cloud management, select the folder that they should be associated with, move them into cloud management. They go through the bootstrapping process, and the firewalls have moved from Panorama management to Strata Cloud Manager. Albeit in a sped up sequence, but it wasn't sped up by that much. So within kind of 5 minutes, I had this had that done. So that was that's the migration, and that brings me to the end. I thought there was more in there, to be honest. How are we on time, Chloe?
We're all good. We've got 10 minutes, so we'll probably move on to a few questions if that's all right.
Cool, yeah.
There has been a couple that have come through. I was going to bring up Ian McLaren, who is a channel solution consultant at Palo Alto. I do have a slight dilemma. One of our lovely customers that have joined is also called Ian McLaren. So in the sort of subject that I don't want to bring up the wrong Ian, can Palo Ian put your hand up so I know the right one? Thank you very much.
What a great problem to have.
The first time for everything.
Absolutely. That's fantastic.
Here he comes. Thanks,
Hello.
Ian. You've got a twin in the audience.
Meeting them more and more. There seems to be more and more Ian McLarens popping up that I've never met before. It's good to know there's another one.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. So I'll run through. We've got a couple of questions in the Q&A, and please continue to submit any questions whilst we're running through these. So I'll start off with the first one, which is, how easy is the path to migrate from Panorama to SCM?
You've just seen it. Essentially, yeah. the process
that one got in quite early.
Is there? I mean, Rob is obviously a technical expert in this field, and helped me many a times with different firewalls and things. I'm not as specialized as Rob, but I have gone through this process in my home labs as tests to make sure I'm aware, and it is obviously your complexities of your configurations can add things in, but yes, through what Rob's explained, it really is as simple as utilizing the tool. Obviously, do the cleanups first, do the recommendations Rob's made, but yeah, it is a pretty straightforward process.
Brilliant. Next up is, I currently use Panorama for log storage. What options does SCM give me as a log storage option?
Yeah, I can take that in. So, like I kind of mentioned when I was going through, it may not have kind of highlighted it enough, but the as part of Strata Cloud Manager Pro, you get unlimited log storage for 1 year from the time that the log is generated to 365 days later. So Panorama log storage issues, 3 log collectors in a log collector group, a lot of maintenance on that, trying to maintain that, especially for a distributed log collection environment. All those problems are removed with Strata logging servers, and there is no fair usage policy on the amount of logs that you generate. So, whether it's logging at session start and end, which typically we advise against for maintenance issue or for the management plane CPU related issues. But if you did for troubleshooting, you would rest assured that we will capture all of those logs for you, and we will mine them for a year, at least the year for them since the time were generated. And there is, like I said, just to highlight, there is no fair usage policy on the volume of logs that you generate.
I think the only thing I'd add to that is that there are also, if you need them, there are options for extending that storage. So you can do additional length of storage retention things as well if you need to. But also, I think probably one of the things I always find important when asked about SLS is that you can choose the regions as to where your SLS is. So in terms of data sovereignty, we have specific UK-based data centers where that data will reside, and so there is no issues around that side of things. We have full documentation around it as well.
Great,
100%.
thank you. Question from Rob, which is, what's the best way to implement external dynamic list rules in SCM?
Implement them. Well, we can reference them, external dynamic lists in SCM. So you would they would be pushed down from the firewall. So you would configure the basics for how the external dynamic list is pulled down to the firewall. You would configure that on Strata Cloud Manager, the same as Panorama. You would configure it on Panorama and push it down to the firewalls. Panorama, like Strata Cloud Manager, doesn't actually pull down the list itself. It's done on the firewall basis, but the the address, the SSL certificate, and the polling interval, that would be done from that would be configured from SCM, pushed down to the firewall. The firewall then would use its service route, whichever service route is configured to reach out and pull down that dynamic list. It only does that, as well, if the dynamic list is referenced in the policy.
Perfect. I hope that answered your question, Rob. And then we have one final question from Aaron, which is, we have people using SCM already without previously using Panorama. Is there a way we can briefly explain additional benefits of SCM and also provide additional features and recommendations that they may not be aware of on the platform, in brackets, new to Palo?
Okay, well, very, in one kind of sentence, really on that, Aaron, and thank you for the question. Moving away from reactive to proactive, that's really the key difference between Panorama and SCM. Think of Panorama like a newspaper. By the time the logs get there, it's kind of yesterday's news, basically. Whereas with Strata Cloud Manager, it's looking ahead. It's looking ahead based on the logs that have been generated and sent to Strata Logging Service and the telemetry that's sent there. It's saying, based on this information, we think X or Y. And then, from a posture point of view as well, apart from forecasting issues before they happen, from a posture cleanup and security efficacy point of view, it's, we saw the guidance of on the URL profiles. You would have to be, even for someone new to the technology, you would really have to have your eyes closed to miss how really, it's a good way of configuring a URL profile, because of the built-in shields and the custom checks and the recommendations littered throughout the GUI.